Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristen and today I'm going to be sharing with you my summer reading list as well as some summer reading recommendations for you. So I'm going to be including a bunch of the books that I've already read and enjoyed this year and also about 6 or 7 books that are currently on my summer reading list. Now I'm just going to jump into it. I don't have all the books with me because a lot of them are library books or just books that I have at my house in Tallahassee and I'm not there right now. So I'm just going to insert a picture of the cover of each one that I'm talking about, and then I'll just read a little bit of the excerpt about the book in case you are interested in any of them. And I would recommend any of the books that I read this year as well as the ones last year. If you're interested in those lists, I'll link the blog post down below. The first book that I would recommend that I read this year is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. This was probably the second or third time I read this book, but it is still one of my favorites. You may have heard about it or seen the movie, but it's basically the story of Hazel Grace, who has terminal cancer, and it's kind of just about her struggle living with her illnesses and something that she's battled for a really long time, and then a couple of the friends that she meets along the way through like a cancer and cancer survivor support group that she's a part of. And then she is actually a huge reader herself, so then it kind of tells the tale of her reading and sharing one of her favorite books, then eventually getting a chance to actually meet that author. So it kind of just follows her and then her friends as they go along. The movie is also really good. I am a huge book over movie person, but I did enjoy that book as well. I also read a lot of Jodi Picoult, and I think that was a goal I set for myself last year, that I eventually want to read all of Jodi Picoult's books. So a few of the Jodi Picoult books that I read this year are Leaving Time, and this one was recommended to me by my mom, and this one is about a character named Jenna Metcalf, who kind of dives into reading her mom's journals to learn more about her. And her mom was a scientist who studied elephants, and specifically grief in elephants, and she kind of doesn't believe that her mom abandoned her when her mom disappeared so many years ago. So then she kind of uses the clues in the journal as well as getting to know people who knew her mother to kind of figure out what really happened. And this is definitely one of the books that I couldn't put down, and my mom loved it as well, and I think she's read it multiple times. Another one that really kind of, I don't know how to recommend this book, is called The Pact by Jodi Picoult. I'm just going to read the description of this one so that I don't spoil anything extra away, and because I did read this one a few months ago. For 18 years, the Harts and the Goulds have lived next door to each other, sharing everything, from Chinese food to chickenpox to carpool duty. They've grown so close it seems they have always been a part of each other's lives. Parents and children alike have been best friends, so it's no surprise that in high school, Chris and Emily's friendship blossoms into something more. They've been soulmates since they were born, so when calls from the hospital room come in, no one is ready for the appalling truth. Emily is dead at 17 from a gunshot wound to the head. There is a single unspent bullet in the gun that Chris took from his father's cabinet, a bullet that Chris tells the police he intended for himself, but a local detective has doubts about the suicide pact that Chris has described. This one, again, kind of really got me going, and a lot of Jodi Picoult's books kind of have like law, crime, and murder themes a lot of the time. So as a future lawyer, that's the kind of stuff that kind of I'm just interested in, so I kind of take it all very personally, and maybe that's my own fault, but it was another book that I was just really interested in, and I really enjoy reading her stories. Another author that I've enjoyed this year is Lori Nelson Spielman. I read Sweet Forgiveness just recently from her. So Sweet Forgiveness is about this craze that one author started in the book called the Forgiveness Stones, where basically she sends letters to people with 2 stones, one asking for forgiveness for something, and then the other stone is supposed to be for them to ask for forgiveness to someone else. And it follows a talk show host named Hannah Farr, who received one of the original Forgiveness Stone pouches from that original author, and it kind of just shows how she deals with the forgiveness, whether she can forgive that person specifically, and then kind of the whole drama of her sending her own stones herself, asking and receiving forgiveness. And then it takes her whole career on a loop, and her personal relationships and her family, and it's a whole thing. But overall, it is a good message of forgiveness, to forgive and be forgived. The other book that I read by Lori Nelson Spielman is called The Life List, and this one I really enjoyed because I saw a lot of myself in the main character, and I also saw it as something that I would be so proud to write if I hopefully do become an author later on. And this one has a very similar style. The main character, Brett, her mom has died and leaves a will, and Brett is expecting all these things, to become CEO of her mom's company and all these other great things, and to receive this massive inheritance as her siblings do from her mom's will. But instead, her mom has found a list that Brett wrote when she was a child about a bunch of things she would like to accomplish in life, kind of like a life bucket list, but Brett wrote it when she was very young. And so her mom's intention for Brett's inheritance is that she must complete all the other things, all the other goals on her list as her mom saw fit before she died, before she can receive her inheritance. And this really kind of throws Brett's whole life for a loop, as she has to complete this whole list if she wants to receive her life's inheritance, and it ends up again kind of wrecking her jobs and relationships, and kind of brings up all these things from her past and all these insecurities that she has, but then she's eventually able to work through them one by one and figure it out on a time constraint. And I really enjoyed this one. It's kind of a short, easy, great summer read that I really enjoyed. Another author that I read a few of recently is Jane Green. The first one is called Summer Secrets, and this is the story of one woman struggling to right the wrongs of her past with even more complications in the present. So it follows Kat, who lives in London. She's a journalist and she parties really hard and has a problem with alcohol. She eventually discovers the identity of her father that she didn't know, and then she eventually wants to stop drinking and kind of get over her alcoholism and make amends with the people that she hurt because of it. And it sends her back to America to meet her real father and then his family, and kind of just right some wrongs with them as well. And it says, as the past collide with the present, Kat must confront the darkest things in her own life and uncover the depths of someone's need for revenge. So it's kind of a family love revenge story, but it is a good one and it kept me kind of on the edge of my seat too. Also from Jane Green, I just finished reading Saving Grace. This was one that kind of is almost like too fake to kind of follow along the story. It follows Grace Chapman, who is married to Ted Chapman, and Ted is a very successful author, but he's kind of like a rough, kind of likes everything his own way kind of guy. So Grace is basically his housewife and kind of manages a lot of things for him, but he's kind of difficult to manage and has a lot of anger issues, it seems, and takes a lot of that out on Grace. And he has an assistant that helps him with life things and around the house, but also with his writing and author things. And she has to leave, so then Grace is dealing with hiring a new assistant. So they hire this new assistant that they think is so perfect, but Grace is kind of hesitant and she thinks she's too good to be true. And it says, though it's clear to Grace that Beth might be too good to be true. Beth is the assistant that they hire. This new interloper might be the biggest threat of all, one that could cost Grace her marriage, her reputation, and even her sanity. With everything at stake and no one to confide in, Grace must find a way to save herself before it's too late. Powerful and riveting, Jane Green's Saving Grace will have you on the edge of your seat as you follow Grace on her harrowing journey to rock bottom and back. Now I'm just going to talk to you about a few of the books that I picked up from the library most recently, and these are going to be my next reads as I'm going. First, I'm just going to start with the book that I am currently reading. This one is called Little Deaths by Emma Flint. This stack of books, I didn't read the backs before I picked them up, and I think that was kind of fun. I kind of just grabbed them and went, which I think is kind of a fun way to read. So that's what I did with these. So I actually haven't read the backs of any of these, but I've already read 2 of them. So this one says, it's the summer of 1965 on the streets of Queens, New York, and one July morning, Ruth Malone wakes up to find a bedroom window wide open and her 2 young children missing. After a desperate search, the police make a horrifying discovery. Separated from her husband, Ruth has been raising her children all alone. Noting her perfectly made-up face and provocative clothing, the empty liquor bottles, and love letters that litter her apartment, detectives lead to convenient conclusions. Sent to cover the case on his first big assignment, tabloid reporter Pete Wonecke at first can't help but do the same. Ruth Malone is enthralling, engaging, and secretive. Is she really capable of murder? So that's what I'm reading right now. I have kind of just gotten to the part where the police investigation has begun and Pete is starting to uncover the case and start covering it as a reporter. Another one I have picked up is called Death on West End Road by Carrie Doyle. And this one starts with saying, like a basket of warm cinnamon buns, an unsolved crime is something that Hampton's innkeeper and sleuth Antonia Bingham just can't resist. Despite a busy high season schedule and an inn booked to capacity, Antonia has agreed to investigate a cold case in her beloved adopted hometown of East Hampton, New Jersey. The killing of Susie Whitaker, whose brutal 1990 slaying on a tennis court in the poshest part of town was never solved, and the person who hired Antonia, prime suspect Pauline Framingham, a manipulative pharmaceutical heiress from a powerful family. Okay. The crime scene is compromised, the circumstances are complicated, and former witnesses are cagey, haunted, and very reluctant to revisit what happened on that sun-splashed afternoon decades earlier. As Antonia attempts to unravel the mysteries of the past, she unearths even darker secrets and ultimately wonders if it would have been best to let sleeping dogs lie. To make matters worse, past acquaintances and love interests reappear in the Hamptons, disrupting Antonia's world and causing her to scurry to the fridge for comfort. Interesting. Okay, well, I'll be reading this, and it also says it's the third book in the Hamptons murder mystery series. Next is this one called Die With Me by Elena Forbes. Somewhere in London, a lonely young woman is reaching out to the wrong man. It's up to Detective Inspector Mark Tartaliga and the rest of the Barnes murder squad to find her before a killer does. When 14-year-old Gemma Kramer's broken body is found on the floor of St. Sebastian's Church, the official ruling is that she jumped to her death from the organ gallery. But then a witness steps forward claiming to have seen Gemma kissing a much older man before the two of them disappeared into the church together. After the toxicology report comes back showing traces of GHB and alcohol in her system, a full-scale murder investigation is launched. At the helm is DI Mark Tartaliga, a stubborn cop known for following his hunches. It's Mark's first time in charge, and he walks right into a political minefield as the investigation turns up 3 more suspicious deaths, all involving vulnerable young women falling from strange places, all initially ruled suicides. This description is kind of long, so I'll just stop there, but this sounds really interesting. It's another kind of crime murder mystery. I also picked up another book by Jane Green. This one is called Family Pictures. I'm sure it's kind of a similar family story, but I like her storytelling so far, so for the sake of time, I will leave the description of this one if you want to look it up. Next is called All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and this was recommended to me by some Instagram friends. It's definitely a thick book, which doesn't scare me at all, but I'm excited to read this one, especially because I know other people have enjoyed it. Also, the last book that is on my current summer reading list is called Look For Me by Lisa Gardner. My sister is reading this one right now. She's in town for a few weeks before she goes back to school for the summer, and she's kind of just been picking out some of my library books while she's here, and also for the sake of time, I'll just leave this one for now. So that is my summer book reading recommendations and what is on my current book reading list. You can follow along with me on Goodreads if you want to see what I think of these books or read the descriptions of any of them in further detail. I just published a blog post with all the books that I've read in 2019 so far if you want to use that as a book reading list. If you want to buy any books, if you don't have a good library or kind of a place to get books near you, you can always buy them on Thrift Books. They have a great selection for very, very affordable prices, and I think they do free shipping if you spend over $10, which is so good because that's like 3 or 4 books at their prices. Thank you so much for watching and for spending a few minutes of your day with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you have any book recommendations for me. You can leave them in a comment below. I hope you're having a lovely day, and until I see you again, be nice to people, be nice to yourself, and do something kind today.